So y'all remember a couple months ago when it was looking like this upcoming offseason would be one of the greatest free agency classes in NBA history? Yeah, what the heck happened to that NBA? There were so many incredible free agents available, and then a bunch of them signed, or I should say re-signed, with their current teams, Giannis and Paul George being the big ones. And we are at a point now where I believe Victor Oladipo might be the greatest available player this offseason. The best free agent available is Victor Oladipo. And it looks like it's going to stay that way because he just turned down a 2-year, $42 million extension. This doesn't surprise me, alright? We all know Victor Oladipo wants his bag. He thinks he deserves a max contract, or at least something very close to it. The Houston Rockets would not be the smartest team in the world to give him that max contract, considering his injury history, his history as not being the world's greatest teammate, or not necessarily being a bad teammate, but being a guy who is very iffy about staying with his team, because his whole tenure with the Pacers was basically a back and forth where he says he wants to stay with the team, and then a few weeks later it comes out that he doesn't really want to stay with the team, and that's just, that's been his shit in Indiana for, the last 3 years, alright? He's also 29 years old, or he's about to be 29 years old, I should say, and while that's not old for a player, it's not young for a player either, and the Houston Rockets are tanking. So, this begs the question, what is going to happen to Victor Oladipo now? Will he get traded before the offseason, or is he going to leave in the offseason and go somewhere new? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't think he's staying with the Houston Rockets. I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me why they would keep him. He is older than, he's not some promising young player they're going to build up as a future star. He's too old for that. He's very injury prone, so he's very risky to keep, and he just doesn't really seem like he wants to be there. The team who I think makes the most sense for Victor Oladipo as a trade destination is the Miami Heat, so that's what I'm going to talk about next. Miami has been looking to make a big trade. We know they were involved in the James Harden news. We know they were looking after Giannis in the offseason before Giannis ended up re-signing with the Bucks for another 5 years. Now, it would only make sense if they were looking for Victor Oladipo. And on paper, I can already hear Heat fans sitting there going, we're not going to go for Victor Oladipo because the Rockets, they want Tyler Hero, and he's going to be a future superstar. No way we trade Tyler Hero. He's going to be the best player in the world. Blah, blah, blah. Seriously, what the fuck am I saying? Seriously, Miami Heat fans, chill on Tyler Hero. The dude is not going to be that amazing. Yeah, he might be an all-star a few times, but I can't believe you guys wouldn't give him up for James Harden. That was the stupidest trade ever. The stupidest thing ever for y'all to turn down the James Harden trade for Tyler Hero. But obviously, Tyler Hero would not be involved in this deal, okay? If they wouldn't give him up for James Harden, they're sure as hell not giving him up for Victor Oladipo. But Miami doesn't need to give up Tyler Hero for Victor Oladipo. Oladipo's price has really gone down in recent seasons, mainly because of injuries. The dude is injury prone as hell, and we've seen how good he can be. Alright, you look at prime Victor Oladipo just a few years ago in Indiana. Okay, just a few years ago, back in 2018, this man was putting up 23, 5, and 5, along with 2.5 steals. He was doing this on 48% from the field and 37% from 3. He was a beast. He was also an all-defense player that season. Victor Oladipo was killing it, and then he got hurt. And then ever since then, he's been inconsistent as heck. This season, his stats have dropped all the way to only 19, 5, and 5, which is still pretty decent, and 1 steal, but he's only shooting 39% from the field and 29% from 3. He has fallen off hard. So dang far for Victor Oladipo, but we know that he can get back to that point. Alright? He's 3 years older right now than he was when he was that good. He is 28. That is most players' primes. If this man stays in a consistent situation, if he's able to stay healthy, there is very much a belief that he can get back to what he used to be, and the Miami Heat might want that. So here's the trade I would propose for the Miami Heat for Victor Oladipo if they were going to trade for him during the season, because the team has been kind of sus this year. The Miami Heat have gotten back in the playoff race. I believe they're like the 6th seed right now, but they're still not looking like contenders, all right? They don't look as good as they were last year. Jimmy Butler's gotten a little bit older, and he's had injury issues. Same thing with Goran Dragic. Tyler Hero is having maybe a sophomore slump is unfair to say, but he is, showing people why it's insane that the Heat weren't willing to trade him for James Harden. They were overrating him. Bam Adebayo has been amazing, but he's pretty much the only consistent guy on this team. And then guys like Kendrick Nunn have kind of fallen off. Duncan Robinson is not as amazing as he was last year. The team just doesn't look like the contender they did last season when they made the finals. So, here's the trade I would propose. Victor Oladipo is making $21 million this season, and on the last season of his deal. So the Heat should trade them to the Rockets. Give them Myers Leonard, who's making about $10 million. You give them Mo Harkless, who's making about $4 million. And then you give them something along the lines of, my guess would be, Precious Achiuwa and Kendrick Nunn, and like a future first-round pick. In fact, maybe not even a first-round pick. You give them like 2 future seconds in there, okay? Because you're giving them Nunn and Achiuwa. Alright, that is the trade I would propose for Victor Oladipo. Now, you honestly might be able to get away with less than that. Honestly, you could probably get away with 1 second-round pick, or just like a future first-round pick swap instead, because Victor Oladipo's value has really gone down. It depends on how much the Heat want him. But in this hypothetical trade, you now have a starting lineup of Goran Dragic, Tyler Hero, Victor Oladipo, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. That is an incredible starting 5. You have 3 players who are significantly above average defenders in Bam, Jimmy, and Oladipo, and all 5 of these players have an amount of ability to create their own shot. Not all of them are elite at it, but every single one of these players is a competent offensive player now that Bam Adebayo has really stepped up his shooting game this season. That's a hell of a team right there. It's not perfect. There's injury risk because of mainly Jimmy, Goran, and Oladipo all have a little bit of an injury history, and Oladipo, the dude has been injury prone as hell since getting to Indiana. But when they stay healthy, that is a beast of a team right there. Oladipo is 29, you resign him for like the next 4 or 5 years, you give him a decent contract, he would probably be willing to take less than the max in order to stay in Miami, would be my guess, because he would get to contend, and he would just get to live in Miami, and Miami's pretty dang nice, so I've been told. I mean, it's got beaches and warm weather, what the hell else do you want, you know what I'm saying? Off the bench, they're not as good as they were before, but they still have an alright bench. They got Kelly Olynyk, Avery Bradley, who's the other guy I'm looking for here? Duncan Robinson, of course, and they can sign some more people because they would have still a decent amount of cap space in the offseason. That would make sense to me for Victor Oladipo. Now, if the Miami Heat were not willing to do this trade for Victor Oladipo, they could still get him in the offseason. There's 2 main places I could see Oladipo going in the offseason, alright? Number 1 is the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat would have a big chunk of cap space. I don't believe they would be able to give him a max contract, nor would they be willing to. That would not make sense. But he definitely could sign there for something like $25 million a year to close to $30 mil, depending on how much the Heat were willing to give him. And then they basically just got the same team that I told you before, except now they still have Kendrick Nunn and Precious Achiuwa on the team. That's a very, very good team. Once again, if Oladipo can stay healthy. And the question just comes down to how much does Pat Riley believe in Victor Oladipo? Does he believe he can stay healthy? And does he believe he will fit in with the Miami Heat culture? Some of you may also be thinking the fit doesn't make a lot of sense as the starting lineup. It gets very small because now you got to play Jimmy Butler at power forward. I'm not that worried about that. In this modern NBA, I don't think there's an issue with playing Jimmy Butler at power forward. You have 2 very switchable players in Oladipo and Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo is a very switchable guy on the perimeter, so I don't think that the defensive end is going to end up being a problem. And also, with Jimmy's shooting issues, I think him playing power forward might kind of work best, where he plays like a point forward role. It's a weird lineup to be sure, but in 2021, 2022, I don't think it's a lineup that cannot work, especially with a very good coach like Eric Spoelstra. Now, if Oladipo really wants that max money, however, If there is one team out there who I think will give him that max money, it is the New York Knicks. This team has been begging to the basketball gods for a star for freaking forever now, ever since Carmelo Anthony left, okay? And they realized what a bad signing he was in the first place because it was a terrible trade for him. The Knicks have been praying for a star for so long, and they might just be willing to give Victor Oladipo a max contract in order to get one. They have a max slot on their roster. They have a ton of cap space, and they're probably going nowhere anytime soon. Even though they are in the playoffs this year, this team's not a contender. They're not even close to a contender. They are still kind of a joke in the league because they never really recovered from when they didn't get Zion and then they didn't get KD and Kyrie a few years ago. Victor Oladipo, does it make sense on the Knicks from a basketball standpoint? No. No, it does not. But the Knicks don't usually do things that make sense from a basketball standpoint. They do things that make sense from the standpoint of James Dolan sitting on his fat ass and finding ways to fuck over the franchise and the fan base. Victor Oladipo is exactly what the kind of move the New York Knicks would do for no good reason, and I could see him going there for that max contract if they give it to him, and if he doesn't go to the Heat, my guess is that Victor Oladipo will go to the New York Knicks. Now, I kind of expect him to be traded this season, and my guess would be the Heat. They want to keep contending this year like they were last year. Oladipo and the trade I suggested definitely makes them better in my opinion, assuming he stays healthy. He needs to get his stuff back together, but like I said earlier, we know how good this man can be. He just needs to get back there once again. So that is my proposed trade for Victor Oladipo. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate it. If you got a different trade destination or free agent location for Victor Oladipo, let me know what it is in the comments. I definitely might have, there might be somewhere that I just didn't think of. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you again for watching. Have a good rest of your day.